donuts is not the answer. Coffee does help, but also connections, right? And so that's why we're here today. It's to specifically make connections from the business community to the entrepreneurial community. Today's presenter, our buddy from PFITR, who we're going to tell you a little bit more about here in a minute, needs to meet these kinds of individuals. So here in a little while, I'm going to ask you who you know that fits this profile, right? Who do you know who's looking for a sales and marketing position? I don't know if that is commission or not commission. I'm sure Jim will be happy to tell us about that here in a few minutes. Also looking for interns, specifically, I'm not sure what kind of interns. Jim, what kind of interns?
Financial, people majoring in financial services or finance majors that want to learn more about the bond market.
Okay, great. Can you make sure that your mic is turned on for us as
All
well?
right,
It probably is. Green means go.
I'm checking.
In any event. The mics are really for show, friends. They're for the camera, not so much for projecting us into the room, if you're wondering why we are not any louder. In any event, Jim needs finance interns, and he also is always looking for investors, just like everyone who presents. Finding some additional capital is often helpful in accomplishing growth. We love when you share things on social media, and to do that, you're going to use our hashtag, #LiftTheRock. You can tag the Venture Center at Venture Center, and you can find PFITR at PFITR or PFITR. We like to keep it easy, but be sure that you use the hashtag #LiftTheRock. You can also use that hashtag on any other social media tool. We just primarily use Twitter on Tuesday mornings. So with no further ado, we're going to welcome our friend Jim, the founder and CEO of PFITR, and you're going to put some energy in this room. Come on, give the man some love. That'll work. There you go.
Thank you.
You got it?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She's done an awesome job. She's the best introduction person in the world, and we just love her here.
Thank you, Jim.
So my name is Jim Koetting. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called PFITR. Why PFITR? You know, it used to stand for Public Funds Investment Tracking and Reporting. Then we found a need for this in all these other institutions. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about technology in the bond market, and I guess we first start with the problem that we have. So one of the biggest problems that we have in this market is, let me give you an example. How many of you have gone out and bought something major in the last 10 years? A major purchase, okay, like over $100. So if you're going out and you're going to buy a car, a diamond ring, or a house, or anything else, what's one of the first things that you do? Yes, that's good. Well, you're gonna go out on the internet and check it out, because one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to get a bad deal on what you're buying, right? Okay, you want to go out and you want to make sure that you're getting a good deal. Well, the problem in the bond market, which is the largest market in the world, there's no other market that's bigger than this. It is a multi-trillion-dollar market. This data is so expensive that you can't find the pricing information, the yield information, or anything out there on the internet. You can pay for it, but it's really, really expensive. So imagine you're a small bank, or a city, or a county, or somebody that has $20, $30 million, and they just can't stick that all in the bank because they only have FDIC insurance for $250,000, right? So they have to go out and they have to purchase bonds and fixed income securities. And where do they get all their advice on what to buy? Their salesperson who's selling this stuff, right? And if you're a salesperson, what do you want to do? You want to make money. So do you offer things that you make a lot of money on, or do you offer things you make a little bit of money on? You offer things that make a lot of money on. Okay. So here's another trick question. We've got a bond that pays 0.5%, and we have one that pays 5%. Which one do you think takes on more risk? 5%, right? Which one do you think pays more commission? It's at 5%. So these people go out and they start chasing yield, and they chase yield and go after all this yield. Well, some of the problems is when you chase yield, we have this little problem in 2008. I don't know if you guys remember it, but there was a $5 trillion loss in the marketplace because they were creating these high commission products that they could sell, and then they all fell apart. Well, after the election, we've had a $2 trillion loss in the market. It's a different type of loss in that the interest rates have gone up and the value has gone down. I'm going to take you over to my little graph here. This is 7th grade math, so nothing to be afraid of here. You go out and imagine you're investing, and you invest $1 million in a 10-year treasury or an agency or a muni bond or a corporate bond. And it has this calculation of modified duration of 9. And so you invest $1 million, interest rates go up by 1%, and the value goes down by 9%, so you lose $90,000. Now, when it matures, you're going to get your $1 million back, but that's going to be 10 years from now. And we might have some things called inflation. We might have interest rates go up, which will drive this down, but you can see the rise over the run. You remember 7th grade math? This is going to lower that valuation. So all of these people are having these challenges with that. So what does the FDIC do to banks? They say, before you buy a bond, you have to check to make sure that this is not going to drop like a rock. So the FDIC goes to the banks and does that. Now the FDIC goes to the bank and they see that their portfolio was really high and now it's really low. How did you check this out? And you know what the banks tell them? We didn't. You know why? They don't have any technology or the software, and the data is too expensive. So that's where we get into our solution. Before I get into the solution, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the challenges we had with this Mr. Kurt Prenzler, who takes on a new position, a newly elected treasurer, and he has auditors coming in. This is days after he's elected, third day on the job, and they're asking questions because his portfolio has dropped $3.7 million. He said to his auditors, wait a minute, it's my third day on the job. The auditor says, we don't care. You're supposed to be in safe investments, and it's down $3.7 million. So Kurt is in kind of a challenge because the previous guy didn't make informed decisions on what he was buying, and that's all called interest rate risk. So our solution is we take all this data, we buy it, we put all these algorithms in it, and what we do is we help them be really transparent, have internal controls, get all this pricing data, so you can make a better informed decision. So you want to make a better informed decision, especially when you're managing millions and millions of dollars. So this is what we did with Kurt. We got his $3.7 million loss back up to even, and he got out of those investments. We found out that he was overcharged $370,000 in commissions. You know what? We got that $370,000 back, and now we incorporated an internal control that helps him manage his risk, his timing, his commissions. And you know what? He got reelected. So Kurt was real happy about that. So the bond market, huge market, no bigger market than the bond market. So what are we looking at as far as what people spend on financial services? How big is this market? Well, if you look at the financial services and applications, $103 billion a year is spent. Banking and financial software, $23 billion a year. Financial data, just the data alone, $23.1 billion. And government and state, local IT, $70 billion. So there is a very big budget for financial technology software. So one of the challenges, and why now, we look at these data monopolies that are out there. So when Rush Harding introduced me at the big demo day that we had a year ago, he said, it's my biggest expense. I spend over 6 figures a month just on data. And he says it's because of a monopoly. This data is very expensive. The rising interest rates, the market losses, and the expensive legacy systems are forcing people to really look at other options. And so right now, it's a perfect storm for us to be jumping into this market. Our competition, we have direct and non-direct competition. So non-direct competition is when you go out to the marketplace and you go to a place that they don't wear shoes, and you're trying to sell them shoes. And they go, why do I need shoes? I don't need shoes. I've never worn shoes. I'm happy with what I'm doing. In our marketplace, a non-direct is this is the way we've always done it. Excel, and I get this information from salespeople, so I don't need it. They're not using anything now. Our direct competition is when we get into Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters and SimPro and Tracker. So those are some of our direct competitions, but typically those are on the higher end, and we're kind of going into the lower end. And our secret sauce is some of our algorithms that help them with the buying and the selling and the risk and the price. And we're all focused on better decision making. And the big thing is segregation of duties. So a lot of people who make investments do great at it. You know how? You just ask them, they tell you. I said, how are you doing on your investments? Oh, I'm doing great. I said, well, how do you compare to what? How do you quantify that you're doing great? So I always found it a challenge if you're making the investment and you're reporting on how well you did, there's kind of a conflict of interest because you'll make these reports look really good for yourself. So we're taking that out of there, and there's a demand for that. So our products, we have a couple phases to our product. What we're doing now is starting with the bond price validation to help people make better decisions on what they do. And then we're going to get more into the reporting side of it, and then more into the banking integration and education and analytics side of it. But right now we've got to get our foot in the door. Everyone wants to look at the entire portfolio. This is a big demand for us. But if we can't make a decision on one purchase, that entire portfolio is not as important. So our business model, it's a SaaS business model. We work with an inside sales force. We do have things that you can buy online. You can come in and actually buy our tool online. But most of the time, it needs a little bit of education. It's a little more sophisticated product, so we have an inside sales force. The average cost of our product is about $10,000 annually. Traction to date, we've got over 500 trials. I've personally trained over 800 CFOs, treasurers, all around the country. So if you go to the state of Washington, Orange County, California, or all these different places, they all know who I am. I'm very well known in the bond industry. And out of this training was how I found out this idea that the tools were not out there. And so we've got 35 BPV users. Some of them are test users, some of them are paid users, but we've got 35 users out there, and we've been through 3 accelerators and raised just under $1 million. So customer success stories, of course, we have Kurt Prenzler over at Madison County, now managing a $150 million portfolio, and now he is the county commissioner, so he's moved up from the treasurer. We have a new treasurer. They love our product. They've renewed our product. They think it's wonderful, and they said it helps them get better yield and get better returns on their investment. Our team, really proud of our team. I came through this accelerator, and we finished in when? August? Not one of these people were on my team in August. All of these people have come to our team since August, most of them since October. So we've got actually a development company in India that's actually our company, that we own it. They're employees of ours. It's a subsidiary of this. We've got our company here in Little Rock. We've moved down here. We no longer have an office in St. Louis. And we've got just a really incredible team that I'm so excited about, because having a good team makes all the difference in the world. This is our pro forma. We're looking to, next year, be in about $2 million in annual recurring revenue, getting up to about $50 million in annual recurring revenue in the next 5 years. And we're raising right now $425,000 to get to our next level. So what we're wanting to do is we want to hire more salespeople, a couple more developers, some sales and marketing teams, and increase our sales to about 15 a month. So we are known as the Kelley Blue Book for the bond market. The Kelley Blue Book for the bond market, and there's a huge need right now in this market to make better decisions and to have that resource that people do not fall into the trap of just chasing yield and taking too much risk on. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
So I'm sure you guys have some questions for the fantastic PFITR fellow. So what you're going to do is bring your little tail right up to the microphone so that you can ask those questions, and we can hear it online.
This is really fascinating. My mind's boggled as to how you can collate all that data. It seems to me the whole concept of the bond market and being able to analyze it means you have to be able to look at the underlying investments and determine how are they performing. So I gather from this that you don't actually collect the data as much as y'all purchase it and then apply it to your algorithms. How does that go? How's that work?
Yes and no. Okay, so this was a really big challenge as far as a company, because one of the things that you go out and you look at, it's like, why is this so difficult to get? You know, why is it so difficult to get? So you look at all the providers of this data, and then you find that somebody has kind of the gold standard as far as pricing, and everything is based upon price. Everything's based upon price, and what is a true price of this? Well, the true price is actually what a buyer and agree to as far as selling it. But in the stock market, you know, those things are going on all the time. On a muni bond, you might trade that every 6 months. So it's really difficult to say, okay, in between that time, what's this thing worth? Because you've got all the interest rates and everything. So we started finding all the data, but the data is out there. There's a lot of it. And so now you've got to aggregate all of this data. And so you use, you know, to turn it into an API format that you can get this data out there. And so we use MongoDB and Node.js and, you know, all of these different things to kind of crunch through all this data and then supply it to different people, but we're doing it at a fraction of the cost that some of the other people are providing it at. So it is, you know, finding the data, putting the algorithms in, looking at what people use to make a decision. And then the other thing about the data is there's companies out there that supply a lot of this data, but it's so hard to make a decision when you have information overload. You know, it's kind of like that old saying, it's like, I just want to know what time it is. I didn't want to know how to build a watch. You know, so that's what we're trying to do, is provide that specific data so I can make a quick decision on, should I buy this, should I not buy it? Should I sell it, should I not sell it? Is that helpful? Okay. Next question.
I'm sorry you didn't bring us magic tricks this morning.
I did not bring any magic tricks. I got over the magic tricks. I thought I was going to use, I had this beautiful whiteboard here, and I was going to show interest rate risk on the whiteboard. So I did 7th grade math today, so.
That's a magic trick in itself, right?
That is
so,
a magic trick.
my serious question is, I want to know how you went about starting your own data center essentially in India. How did you connect up with these guys?
Well, that was really interesting, you know. So one of the people in the cohort was Indian that came over here and spent a lot of time in India. He has a lot of friends who have development centers. In fact, his CTO built the Microsoft Center in Hyderabad, which was 6,000 people. So there was a lot of questions on what to do and how to do it. And the biggest thing you need is somebody that you know and you can trust over there. So I've got a friend over there that I've worked with on several one-off projects for the last 5 years. And we'd been flirting with this idea for a long time. So the first hire that we agreed to do it, and then we started going through the process of registering our company over there, which takes about 6 months and about $2,500 roughly. So we started that process. The first person that we hired was not a CTO, but a HR person, because she has to go through and we have to start doing the interview process. Well, anytime you're dealing with programmers, you say, can you do this? And they say, sure, yeah, it's just, you know, ones and zeros. What the heck? You know, it's pretty easy. Well, you come to find out after years of doing this, it's not that easy, and you need very specialized people. So what we did is we said, okay, we want to have a user interface, UI, UX person. We wanted to have a front-end developer. We wanted to have a back-end developer. We wanted to have a QA person. We wanted to have a project manager. And so we're kind of drawing these things out. And we said, okay, we also want to do it in Node.js, Angular, MongoDB, MySQL, all of these things that that they would have to have. So what we did is we got a great CTO who started working with us, who actually works at Axiom, really knows big data. His name's Scott Jones. And I said, Scott, I don't know anything about, I've made so many mistakes bringing on the wrong person. How do you help us with this? And so he said, well, here's what we do is before we bring them on, we give them a test. And can they complete the test? So these are I want you to do this, 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 and this. And then they come back with the results, and you find out if they're good or not. And a lot of them couldn't do it. A lot of them rejected it. So you go through a lot of numbers, and then some of them came back, it's absolutely perfect. And then the ones that came back, that's absolutely perfect, they had their brother-in-law do it for them. And so you have to interview them and make sure that they know that code. And so it's gone through a long process, and it takes a little bit of time. But the culture over there is they want to work for a company. They want to have an opportunity to come to the United States. You don't want to work with independent contractors because it's a different mindset over there. And so it was methodic and time-consuming, but I got some really good advice on how we did it. So I hope that helps.
Anybody else? No other questions? All right then. Well, I'm sure Jim can stick around for just a second so that
Absolutely.
you can ask your math questions one-on-one with
Absolutely.
no fear of public embarrassment, right?
Yes, that's right. So if we want to talk Fibonacci numbers, I'm all for it.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Let's give
Appreciate
Jim a
it.
little love. All right. So as promised, this is where you have an opportunity to specifically help Jim and PFITR. So I need to know who you know that Jim needs to meet. You've got these lovely little cards in front of you on the table. They look just like the ones on the screen. You flip them over to the white side, and that's where you tell us who you know that Jim needs to meet. So remember, he's looking for sales and marketing professionals. He's looking for interns, specifically people who have finance degrees or are working on finance degrees or might just be interested in the bond market. And he's looking for investment. As he said, they're finishing raising a round. So more connections from that front are always helpful. Remember, you don't have to give me your person's contact information. All I need you to do is say that you will connect your friend Sue to Jim. That's all we need. And then you at the bottom, you need to be sure you give me your name and your email, because we're going to follow up with both Jim and you to make sure that we remind you guys to actually facilitate those connections. So next week we have a longtime friend of the Venture Center, Zuni Learning Tree, coming to present her EdTech platform. Zuni was one of the Spring 2015 Pre-Accelerator cohort members. And so she's going to be here to tell us how her company has grown from way back when it was an itty-bitty tiny idea to what it is today. So we look forward to seeing you guys right here, same time, same place, next Tuesday for Lip the Rock with Zuni. Thank you.